Back out here one final time in Sioux City, Iowa, wrapping up coverage of the battle of the number ones. Division III's number one versus the NAIA's number one. I'm Pat Coleman of D3Football.com, and I'm joined by the Pat Coleman of the NAIA. Yes, the NAIA has a guy who covers sports just as passionately as we do at D3Football.com. His name is Jason Dannelly, and you can catch his coverage at roadtothechipper.com. But, Jason, we were talking before the game, first of all, about how unprecedented this was. Neither of us could come up with an instance in which the number one team in the NAIA had faced the number one team in Division III in football. And, even though perhaps the way the game was played might not be necessarily representative of the quality of these two teams, we certainly had a thriller of a game tonight.
I think that's ultimately what you go for at the end of the day. You want to have a good football game. You want to have a score that at the end of the day shows that these are two superior teams in their leagues or divisions in this case. And I think as things worked out towards the end of the game, you started to see maybe what separates these two teams a little bit more in the second half. That was maybe more indicative of how these teams are actually supposed to play. Yeah,
because in the first half, obviously Morningside, two bad snaps in a row, one over the head of the quarterback, one over the head of the punter, and Whitewater turned that into early points. The Mustangs fumbled the ball away another time, and I was talking to Kevin Bullis in an interview earlier. He said Whitewater was frankly shocked to be going into the locker room at halftime with a lead.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I thought too. It really could have swung either way for either team. Those two early bad snaps by Morningside, I really think hurt their momentum in the first half, but credit to them for sticking around, and then credit to Wisconsin-Whitewater for just sticking to the game plan, being physical with Morningside, and kind of dominating that line of scrimmage in the first half. And I think that's ultimately what was the difference in the game, and not just the first half, is they were so physical up front.
Yeah, that is Whitewater's MO. Whitewater's motto is pound the rock. They literally pound a rock on their way into the field every day. And after practice on Thursday or their walkthrough on Friday. Someone will correct me on in the YouTube comments on that because I should know that. But point being, at least that second half, that third quarter and that fourth quarter, when the chips are down for Whitewater, that is the Whitewater football program that I've been accustomed to seeing.
And I think that showed you the little separation there is between Wisconsin-Whitewater being in national championship games these last couple of years and Morningside being a semifinal team, quarterfinal team, and one of the better teams in the NAIA. Wisconsin-Whitewater got in an adverse situation and they responded, and I think ultimately that's what championship teams do. They get down in a situation like that and they find a way to come back and win, and ultimately I think that experience with the guys that were back on the team this year after last year's run gave them the edge in this ball game.
We drove down here together from Mankato, Minnesota, and at the end of the conversation, the 3 hours that we were in the truck together, we were talking about what this game means for our respective associations and divisions of football. And I'm here to claim bragging rights for Division III football, at least for the next 12 months, because these teams play again next year.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing that game next year, and hopefully having a little bit drier track where you can actually see how these two teams play. But when I look at Whitewater and I compare them to other teams in the NAIA over the last couple years, it's exactly what we've talked about a few times in this interview. They're a physical ball team, they're a confident ball team, and they're going to get out there and they're going to pound their opponents. And ultimately, when I look at them, that's a championship caliber team in Division III and obviously in the NAIA. If they were playing at this level of football, it would be a high level of football. And if you get on a dry track and you don't have little mistakes, who knows how this game may have ended tonight. But ultimately, we saw a great one.
Yeah, and I think if Morningside were playing in Division III, we would see them playing late into December, playing into the national semifinals, especially the way that they looked when they were hanging onto the football, when they were throwing the ball well, right? And they were giving Whitewater's defense and Whitewater's second and third level defenders some real trouble. Those are things that, some teams in Division III can do to the Warhawks, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, and I think the same thing when you look at how Whitewater would get into the NAIA. They're such a physical ball team up front. Physical football wins in the NAIA, and ultimately if you don't turn the football over, and those are things that would make them very successful, obvious at this level. But for 12 months you got it on me. For the first time we can really say in all the years that you've covered Division III and I've covered NAIA, we could actually put the two best teams in the country at that moment against one another and see how they did. And you got me by 3 this time. We'll see how it goes next year.
3 points on the road. I just want to reference that.
It's very true, like 10, I guess.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I was only going to say maybe 6 or 8 or 7, something like that. So he's Jason Dannelly, the Pat Coleman of NAIA football. RoadToTheChipper.com is where you can find his coverage of the NAIA, and we'll have more coverage of all things Division III football on D3Football.com throughout the rest of the season. Thanks, Jason, and I hope you'll still give me a ride home.
I was considering leaving right away, but I'm a nice guy ultimately.
He is a nice guy. He's in Minnesota now. He has to be. For Jason, I'm Pat Coleman. Final score here: Wisconsin-Whitewater defeats Morningside by the score of 33-30.